This isn't just another 30-minute commercial. This is the people behind the products, the innovators, the engineers, the entrepreneurs.
Your ability to smell is gone. Wow.
This isn't just another hunting show. This is DeerTech TV.
Here's a question. How well do you know your neighbors? Do you know them well enough to ask permission to trail a deer or even maybe hunt on their land? Well, when you go to introduce yourself to your neighbors, you're gonna wanna be prepared. What's their name? How much land do they own? Where is it in relation to your own? All things that are gonna help you learn the area that you hunt much better, while at the same time learning how to enjoy sharing it, or maybe not sharing it, with your neighbors. Here's Brad Rux on how to do just that.
Hi, I'm here in Wisconsin on my farm. This is Ed from Basemap. Ed, here's a perfect example. Here, I got a tree stand. Literally, the property boundary is 10 feet on the other side. So what would I do if this was mine and I didn't know whose property was?
So that's one great thing about our pro membership. Okay, it gives you all of the private landowner information, for every state. All right, so if you shoot a deer and it goes on your neighbor's land, you at least know who it is. If you're not from around the area and you just come out here once a year and you don't know the neighbor, you at least know it's Bill Jones. You know his address, you know where he's at. We give the landowner tax address, so if they live in another city, you at least know where they are. We don't give phone numbers, can't give that private information, but at least you know who it is. You go knock on the door and the chances of getting on that property are a lot better, than if you're just going and you don't know who it is.
Here in Wisconsin, it's tough, right? I mean, to knock on a door and get whitetail permission, but literally turkey season's right around the corner.
Oh yeah.
Man, I think this would be the perfect app because so many of the area people over here are farmers. And when you're talking May, those guys are on the fields. They don't care about the turkeys. So again, I mean, if I'm driving by, I'm gonna look.
Oh yeah, I would say any kind of bird hunting, turkey and waterfowl.
Yeah.
Because you're right, in Wisconsin, you can't get permission to hunt deer. But if you want to go get permission to shoot geese and turkeys, those farmers all day, every day, shoot every one of them.
And kind of like finding public land in Wisconsin or private land is hard. But in other states, that's not the case. I mean, if you're in North Dakota, South Dakota, even Iowa, I mean, your odds of finding a place are pretty decent if you knock on enough doors.
Right.
This gives you the tools. And if I know the guy's name, I feel a little bit more confident walking up to the house. Because first off, I know he owns the land rather than just knock on somebody's door and he doesn't even own that place.
Right.
And two, now I know his name, and coming from a farming background, I can kind of relate. So I think my odds of getting on that property are better.
And it's going to show their property boundaries. So now if you're trailing a deer, now it's going on to another neighbor's land, you know what parcel or what size land they've got and what their boundaries are.
Nice.
And if you have to get the DNR involved, at least then they know who they're dealing with and where the property boundaries are.
The other thing I think this private land stuff really helps is if I'm driving around, I'm going to look for small little places that are in a great area. And I don't want to tell everybody, but I know that there's a little 10-acre slice that I know that person doesn't hunt, and it is probably in one of the best areas possible. Now I know who owns that little 10 acres, and I'm going to go knock on their door, and more than likely, I can get permission to hunt
Right,
on
and
that
chances
place.
are you might be the only one that's knocking on that door. So you
Guaranteed.
don't have any competition.
Guaranteed I'd be the only person.
Right.
So if you're looking for a great spot to be able to find that piece of private property, check out BaseMap. It's going to give you the information, it's going to give you the owner's name, it's going to give you their address, and at least it gives you the opportunity to have that discussion to see if you can get on their piece of property. You're watching DeerTech TV. It's been an interesting year between the pandemic with COVID-19 and our theory on this show, or our theme, was literally going to be going to these manufacturers, which you guys don't know. We know a lot of these people personally. They're deer hunters producing a great product because they want to make you guys better hunters. And we want to get behind the scenes. We didn't want to make it look like it was a TV commercial for 30 seconds. We wanted to get behind the scenes, show you how it's made, tell you a little bit of the inside scoop. But with COVID-19, we haven't had the ability to travel. So the community kind of came together. We're shooting some of our stuff here with prototypes. We're using product that we're not as familiar because it just came out. But we're doing the best we can. We're excited to show you what 2021 is going to be, because hopefully we can travel again, and we're going to get behind the scenes and show you guys the footage that was meant to be.
So I've got 3 words for you this week. Superfreak Extreme. No, I'm not talking about some amped up Rick James song. I'm talking about the Superfreak Extreme broadhead from Dead Ringer. And if that name doesn't make you do a double take, the cutting diameter will.
Hi, I'm Brad Rux from DeerTech TV. You know, one of the things that can make or break a hunt is a good broadhead. And there's a lot of options out there. You know, how as a new hunter, what do you choose? You know, do you shoot a fixed blade? Do you shoot expandables? I like big expandables. Why do I like big expandables? Because they're going to leave a great hole, entrance hole and an exit hole. Normally the animal's going to bleed a lot, expire quickly, and that's why I like expandables. The other thing is if you can stay off that shoulder just a little bit and you aim a little bit further back and hit the sweet spot in the lungs, but if you make a bad shot and you shoot it further to the left and you hit the paunch or liver, a big expandable is going to help you recover that animal. One of the ones I like is the Superfreak Extreme. You got to check this thing out. 2.75 inch cutting diameter. The Superfreak Extreme is 100 grains, comes with a trocar tip. It's 100% aluminum ferrule, aircraft aluminum grade. The blades are replaceable if you need to replace one. Each one's hand polished, 100% hardened. It's going to hit, the O-ring's going to slide through, normally it cuts the O-ring, pops all the way down, leaves a total expansion. 2.75 inches, as I mentioned before. It has that tough as nails tip on it. It'll break bone, it'll go through ribs. It's a great tip for penetration. These blades, like I said, if you're gonna hit a lot of bone, if you hit that shoulder, it probably won't go all the way through it. I have not hit the shoulder ever, because as I said, the one thing you wanna do is back off a little bit. That's the power of a big expandable. I know some outfitters swear they hate expandable broadheads. Man, since they came on the market, I could not be happier. Check out this Dead Ringer. It is built to harvest whitetails. You're watching DeerTech TV.
All right, in Oklahoma, early 2019. We actually flew out on January 2nd, so it's a late archery hunt that you can do here. And we were shooting the new 10-point crossbows. Hunting whitetails, and of course we had a little bit of a challenge because we were hunting a new moon. And you know, our outfitter, Todd Rogers, had talked about all these bucks that have been moving regularly. And of course, we didn't look at the moon phase, and we got here and everything just came to a grinding stop. And to top it all off, we had about a foot of snow. So they tell me Oklahoma only gets 1 or 2 days of snow a year. Well, we were here for both of them, and there was lots on the ground. We actually put off our deer hunting the first morning. There was so much snow, and went and shot some ducks, which was an awesome treat and a bonus to the entire trip. But we got back at it that afternoon, and in the deer stands, you know, there's a lot of winter wheat in Oklahoma, and those deer really key into it. So with all the creeks and draws and the wooded areas here, you know, we found some funneling areas that those deer are traveling in to get to that winter wheat, which is their high protein for this time of year. And it worked. We saw deer, not as many as we normally would here. I've hunted with Todd before, and Normally there's a very regular parade, but you know, the snow was the telltale of it all. We didn't see as many deer during the day, but man, the tracks that were there, when we got back the next morning, we knew that there was a lot of movement that night. So that's what happens when you're not watching the moon phase. If you're hunting a full moon or a new moon, you get very similar circumstances and it can make your hunt more challenging. I think the key is always to stick with it, and if you do, it'll pay off, because you know, movements are off, but deer still move. They have to eat, they have to do what they do. They're deer. So hunters are the only ones that worry about it, and if you stick with it, it usually pays dividends in venison steaks. You know, our first day in the blind, we did see deer, and we saw some bucks, some nice bucks. Typical for post-rut though, both bucks that we saw had antlers broken off, main beams. You know, one of them was broken off just above his head, so obviously they'd been fighting with a lot of force, and the other buck had a broken main beam up near the front, just behind his G3. So there just wasn't a lot of other deer movement. There were some does, a doe and a fawn came in, those other, you know, the broken antlered bucks, but it was a long night. We got to watch some cardinals and woodpeckers and slate-colored juncos and a lot of different birds that are in the forest. They seem to be enjoying the new snowfall, and they did entertain us for the night. You know, we went back to the same blind the next morning because we knew there were some big deer there, and we got in an hour and 15 minutes before legal light to make sure we get in plenty early, sit down, sit still. You know, it's probably my favorite thing to do when hunting deer in the morning is don't be late, be extra early. We got in there, sat down. We actually had bucks moving behind us in the dark. We heard them coming up the ridge. We know there was two of them because they were sparring. We could hear their antlers tickling and rattling in the background, but they came right behind the blind, probably within 10 yards or less. And one of them smelt us and blew, and they never did come back after daylight. We did have a doe and a fawn and another doe come in. We saw a broken antlered buck again, the same one we'd seen the night before, but it was a quiet morning, which again, I think it's indicative of a new moon. You know, we went to a different spot the next afternoon, or that afternoon, and we were probably in the blind about an hour. We're in sort of a creek draw with some tall hills, and all of a sudden this wonderful, huge 10-point buck appears, and we had a really good look at him, got our hearts racing, got our minds racing about what might happen, and he came up the hill, turned. It looked like he looked right in at us. Stood there for a while and then trotted down the hill and into some cover. You know, we're peeking out the windows of the blind trying to keep tabs of him, but he did disappear. And we just hung out quietly. We were looking out the blind, and with about 15 minutes to go in legal light, that big guy was slowly coming in. Had his head up, his ears were cocked. He knew something was up. Anyways, he circled around downwind, busted us, and ran off. Not far. Actually, I was watching him. He was only about 70 yards out. We knew it was a good spot. We saw a big deer there, so we were right back at it the next morning. An hour and 10 minutes before legal light, we were sitting in our chairs. Everything was organized. We were dead quiet, and we just sat there in the darkness, listening. And as the sun just started to peak up, I heard another buck or another deer, and peeked out the window, and sure enough, it was a nice buck, a nice mature buck. You could see the bigger bases on his head, and he had those really dark hawks that he'd been showing off, that he'd been rutting hard over the last little while. So we played games with him. He came in quick and just went right through, never stopped, never offered a shot opportunity, but instead of panicking and trying, you know, to take a chance or a shot that wasn't 100%, we just let him go. That buck came in from our right. He was very cautious, came through, and he never quit walking the first time. I had to just be patient. I didn't want to take a moving shot. and he moved on. I couldn't see him. He'd gone off over in the brush over there. Then he worked his way back, and I could see him scenting the air and trying to figure out if it was going to be safe or not. He probably played around over in the trees in the creek bottom there for about 10 or 15 minutes, and then slowly worked his way back over towards us. And you know, it was quite a sight when I peeked out the window and you could see those antlers sort of coming through the trees at you. It sort of gets the old heart pounding and the anticipation building, and you know it's about to happen. So we just held out and waited, and the deer finally, you know, gave us that right shot opportunity. I had to lean pretty far over in my chair to get the shot out of the one window of the blind, but I've actually practiced that a lot. And the one thing that you always have to be cognizant of is you have to level your bow. You know, when you lean, you tend to cant your bow, and what happens is it does change the trajectory of your arrow from left or right. Tell you what, those triggers on the new 10-point are incredible. It's got a 3.5-pound trigger that breaks so clean that I feel like I was just starting to put pressure on and dunk, off it went. And man, when you can see your arrow disappear into a deer and just the fletch hanging out, man, it gives you a pretty good feeling that you did things right. So we shot him on the left side. And you can see the sun is really helping this morning. I mean, in low light it would be hard to see, but you can see exactly where he took off here. Look at the blood trail. We're not 10 yards from where he was hit, and he is leaking hard. Oh, look at here. That is a really good sign. Our arrow's broken off. With that quartering away shot, I was pretty sure that that broadhead was sunk right into that far shoulder, but really good blood. Well, I don't think we have to check him, but it's always a good policy. He really bled out good. That arrow did exactly what it was supposed to do. There is a beautiful Oklahoma whitetail. This deer didn't do anything I expected. He came through, never gave me a shot, never stopped the first time, went back in the trees, came back, and it was always a head-on shot. I expected them to maybe turn right and come back through, but no, he turned left to make an exit, which forced me to lean forward to try to get a shot out that window. And of course, when you do that, you have to make sure you level your bow. You don't want to cant it because your arrow isn't going to fly straight. So the first thing I did is I leaned out, made sure my bow was level, and I got the shot. That's that new 10-point Turbo M1. So patience and the whole experience is extremely rewarding, and that's what hunting should be. Plus, we're going to enjoy some incredible venison backstraps and maybe even some kidneys and liver tonight if the boys are up for it.